ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول كل بدعة ضلالة.
What practical advice would you give to brothers who have married non-Salafī sisters, who are lax with one or more of the following: mixed family gatherings, celebrations of birthdays and anniversaries, doesn't seek knowledge from Salafi sources or even bother seeking knowledge nor coming to the durus. She doesn't wear the jilbab, or she doesn't wear it correctly. She has friendships with Ahlul Bid'ah and with the open sinners. She clings, or they cling, to what their parents taught them as children, and they do not accept. This is a dars in itself, as you can imagine. But if I was to put it into a minute or half a minute, then I would say that it requires a huge amount of dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the last third of the night to make dua for your families. Make dua for your wife. If it is the wife, make dua for your husband. Enjoin the good and forbid the evil by example, meaning abandon sins for yourself and then advise her to abandon sins. Be consistent in your good deeds. Don't be a person who does a good deed one day and commits a sin the next day in front of the people or in front of your wife. Consistency is important. Sitting down with her, of course you love her because you married her. So there must have been some love there. Try to keep that love going. Because when a person loves you, they will do a lot for you. Wallahi. If your wife loves you, she will do a lot for you. So you have to make sure that you continually rejuvenate and you continually use those means, those wasa'il, to keep that love alive. But if you're always seen as a person who is shouting, raising his voice, telling her off, then that love will quickly turn into resentment. Don't make your wife resentful. Make dua. It doesn't mean that you don't advise, but you can advise in many different ways. How would you advise, for example, your son in the same manner that you would advise your mother? It's a completely different method of advice. You would not talk down to your mother, but to your son, you can reprimand them, but you can't talk to your mother like that or your father. So if it is your wife, you should know the things that trigger her into anger. And you should know, and if you don't, you need to find out. She's your missus. You should know what are the things that soften her, and make dua and admonish her and tell her you need to fear Allah. Allah will question you. Don't worry about me, because I'm trying to live my life in accordance with the Kitab and the Sunnah. What are you going to do when you stand before Allah? So try and try and try. Salafis don't give up. We don't give up. That's why when you look at the CC Dawah stalls and you see our brothers in London, you see our brothers in Birmingham at the Dawah when they're giving Dawah and they're there for hours talking to a man, but he doesn't take Shahada. 3 weeks later he comes back, there he is. He comes back again. You give him another 3 hours. 6 months later he takes his Shahada. Imagine if this, he keeps coming back. Forget him, ignore him. He's not. But he takes sabr. If you're willing to do that to a person that you're giving da'wah to, that you don't even know is a kafir, then min bab awla, your wife has a greater right to that. Your mother has a greater right to that. Your children have a greater right to that. Your relatives have a greater right to that you have sabr. Was not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam rajulun sabir? Was he not a patient man? Look what the Quraysh did to him and look how patient he was with them. They threw stones at him up until he bled into his sandals. And he never asked that they be punished. Rather, he said when the angel of the mountain came, give me the word and I'll crush them. In a narration, the people of Ta'if, I will crush them between the mountains. Give me the word, O Muhammad. He said, no. Maybe from their offspring will come a people who worship Allah. Sabr. You are living in a society, if you don't have sabr in a society like this, you're in the wrong country. Look at the things that you have to see. Look at the things that go past you on a daily basis. You have to have sabr with the obedience to Allah. Sabr in keeping away from the prohibitions of Allah. Patience is tremendously important living in these societies. So yes, okay, your wife goes to birthdays. Tell her, I don't want you to go. I have a right over you. I don't want you to go to birthdays and anniversaries and mixed gatherings. If she goes anyway, say, well, you can go, because I'm not going to physically stop you. I'm not a violent man. But if you go, and I'm upset with you. Think about that, my wife. If she says, well, okay, no problem. Because Allah has written everything. You haven't taken a loss. It doesn't mean that you're a weak man. You're having sabr. A day may come where you're going to have to make a decision. Go to her father, go to her mother and say, listen, you may not, and she may not agree with me, but she's still my wife. Tell your daughter she has to obey me. Because that's what makes a fruitful marriage. I'm not asking her to do anything except that which is better for her deen and better for her dunya. Speak to your daughter. Help me to make this marriage work. Allah give us sabr, because, this is common. We're living in societies where this is common. And I'm not just saying in the West. Everywhere in the dunya you find these types of things taking place. So men have to be men. It doesn't mean that years go by and the situation hasn't changed and you're still there. No, at some stage you're going to have to draw a line. But it's not going to be on the first week or the second week or the first month or 2 months. So therefore, you marry the woman with the religion to begin with. It's not about beauty, I'm sorry. Beauty is important. But I'm not going to marry a beautiful woman who's going to degrade me and humiliate me. Keep your beauty. I don't want your beauty. I want honor. I want to be treated with respect as a husband, as the Prophet ﷺ commanded. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men have authority over the women due to that which Allah has given to some over others of excellence and virtue, and due to that which they spend from their wealth upon them. So it's not to say that all my life I'm 60 years old and you said in 45 years ago. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the affair begins with sabr and gentleness. And you take every avenue that you can, and from the greatest of them is dua. Speak to her father, speak to her grandfather, her grandmother. Talk to your daughter, talk to your granddaughter. And if at the end of all of that, she doesn't change, then bring an arbitrator from her side, حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. Bring a judge from his side and bring a judge from her side. And if they desire rectification, then that will come to them. And the judges will judge who is right and who is wrong. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded in His book.